Welcome to the Buddhistisches Tor Berlin podcast. Join us for live recordings from classes, insightful talks, and guided meditations.
Great, so good morning and welcome again. Can I just, if you're here for the first time, can you just put your hand up? Oh, great. Yeah, well, a very especially warm welcome to you then. My name's Tarapalita, and just wait till. Yeah, my name's Tarapalita, and it's very nice to be back in this class again. I've been away for about 3 months with someone who comes here regularly who's been ordained. So I was on what's called an ordination course. I won't go into all that, but basically, I've been away for 3 months. It's basically like a 3-month retreat. Yeah, you could say something like this. And I think it was Arya Bandhu who said, in a way, it's probably the best thing we do here, in a certain sense, in Tree Rat, and I think that's true. Yeah, so maybe just very briefly, people train for ordination. Where you get one of these things and you get given a new name. It normally takes a number of years, and then you end up going on a retreat, usually a 3-month retreat. And it's a very potent experience for people, as you can imagine, if you've been on retreat yourself, even a weekend retreat, you can't help but reflecting on your life, You can't help but asking big questions about your life and where you're going. Where you come from, And so on a 3-month retreat, that's even more so, And I couldn't actually, funnily enough, I was supposed to be co-leading this retreat, and I couldn't actually end up doing much sitting meditation, because I had quite a severe hip problem, pain, which is still ongoing, but it's improving. So I found myself not really doing much formal sitting meditation, which caused a few problems, seeing as I was, anyway. So I was kind of out of the shrine room, basically, and doing quite a lot of walking meditation, around what's called a stupa. A stupa is like, what's a stupa? It's basically a kind of pyramid-type shaped thing, normally with someone's relics in it, And people walk around, they circumambulate, chanting, reflecting, walking meditation. So that's basically what I did during the meditation periods. And I think doing that, you end up reflecting more. In meditation, maybe you're a bit more concentrated, you're a bit more focused on what you're supposed to be doing in meditation itself. Whether it's like today, cultivating some sort of awareness of yourself and a deepening experience of your direct experience, or developing loving kindness. But the walking meditation seemed a bit different. It seemed a bit more naturally reflective. So it ended up being quite a long 3-month period of reflecting on my life, all the existential questions, Emily, like who and what am I, things like this. What's life about? What do I want to do with the rest of my time, short time on this planet? What do I really believe is true? I'm a card-carrying Buddhist. I've signed up for this. Do I believe that, actually? Which is a bit weird, seeing I'm supposed to be leading this thing, but I was asking myself if I'm a Buddhist, and why did I choose to why have I chosen to end up being on this path for the past however many, 20 years or something? Why have I done that? So in a way, I think everything got stripped away, peeled back, and a number of things happened for me out there, but the two standout things for me is, one, I got very interested in Japanese Buddhism. People like Hakuin and Ryokan, like these kind of seemingly crazy characters. Maybe that's why I was enjoying reading about them, who got wild stories about them. But most definitely what we'd consider an advanced human being, but kind of bonkers as well. So maybe the two go hand in hand. I think it was even the Buddha that said that if we met someone who was enlightened, we probably wouldn't know what to make of them. They might scare us. We might think they're mad. And it can all get tidied up and neatened up in the tradition a bit, so you have it looks quite sensible. Yeah? You have a kind of sensible looking Buddha, which is great. But I just enjoyed reading these Japanese Zen Pure Land characters. They're extraordinary. I would highly recommend. Their poems are amazing. Some of them are incredibly blasphemous. Some of them are incredibly insightful, and they're just very interesting characters. Yes, that was one thing. And the other thing was, in a way, I felt like I was starting again. Yeah. I just wanted to go back, not even back to basics, but like, what's the Buddha actually saying? You know, it's a bit strange. It sounds like a 3-month retreat sounds like a retreat, but in a way it's not a retreat. If it's that length of time, you're kind of just living somewhere else, basically. You're living removed from any of these digital things. You're kind of out somewhere. And things get different, don't they? Things are different. You end up like staring at a tree for 20 minutes. Yeah, that's kind of, that happens. And then you stare at, I got very interested in ants. It's like, wow, they're wild. They're seriously extraordinary creatures. All ant warfare, you know, ripping each other's legs off. I mean, it's mad. Anyway, so I don't know. You end up in an open space, and I just felt like I just got a bit fed up with complicated Buddhism. Nothing wrong with. I think it's very important to exercise your mind. You know, sometimes Buddhism can be put forward in quite a way where your mind doesn't really get stimulated. It can be a bit like sentiment. That's not really Buddhism, but it can be presented in a bit of a sentimental kind of Facebook quote way, yeah? But for me, I was just a bit fed up with complexity, yeah? And maybe it was out of desperation in some respects, but I just thought, what's the Buddha actually saying, yeah? Really and truly, when you strip away all the kind of ritual, which I'm a fan of, it's great, you know, and you strip away everything back, what's he actually saying? And I ended up reading a bit from I think he's a Thai forest monk. He's very well known, Ajahn Chah. Yeah, he's quite an extraordinary character. And he grew up, you know, he was a peasant. His family he came from a peasant family. And it's quite interesting because I'm used to reading Buddhism from people that I would say are highly educated or at least in terms of widely read. And there's a certain way that it's presented. But I found it very refreshing and actually helpful to read about it from someone who's just very simple language. Yeah? And one of the ways that he was talking, I found very helpful, has been helpful. So I really and truly, that's just what I'd like to talk about a bit today. Yeah. So in a way, what the Buddha's saying, very simply, is you're suffering. Yeah. We all suffer. That's what happens when you're born. You suffer, yeah, for multiple reasons. And there's a way out of suffering, yeah? If you want to strip it back, it's fairly simple. That was what the Buddha said he was interested in. He wasn't particularly interested in big metaphysical conversations, you know, all the froth that we get into and get headaches from with each other. He just said, listen, you're suffering, and there's a way out of suffering. And there's different kinds of suffering, aren't there? Yeah, as we all know, to our whatever, yeah, we suffer. One of the areas that I think we suffer most from, or at least I do, and what Ajahn Chah was talking about is fear, yeah? And it struck me the way he was talking about this suffering from fear. So I thought I'd just, go over it briefly, yeah? So, one of the things we fear is a fear of loss, yeah? And Buddhism's not fluffy, yeah? It can be, like I say, it can be presented as fluffy. You can have these little, I don't know where they come from, but these weird little cute Buddhas in IKEA that like, you know, they like got their hand on their knees, like, great. I don't know where they come from. They're definitely not traditional, but maybe we want that, yeah? But Buddhism's not fluffy. Buddha basically says, well, you're going to lose everything, yeah? You will, at some point, you will lose everything. That's just life, yeah? And we don't want to see that, yeah? We have many strategies to avoid that. Obviously, most of our life is kind of dedicated to avoiding looking at that because you're left with a big question then about life, yeah? But we lose everything. But in a certain sense, the suffering comes from our fear of losing everything, yeah? The losing things as one thing. Yeah, there's a grieving process. There's things that happen to us. Maybe it's not pleasant, but there's a lot of suffering to do with our fear of losing things. Yeah. So I've got an exciting little list of things we might lose. It's not conclusive. It's just my little reflections in my own little life. But so I was talking to my cousin the other day, and he works in construction, and he was talking about, like, he just wants to be a good man now. Yeah, he used to be whatever, but now he just wants to be upright. Yeah, he wants to be an upright guy. And he was telling me about these people that he works with. Yeah, and so this one guy is very, very, very wealthy that he was working for, and he wouldn't pay him. He wouldn't pay him, just like it was like a minuscule amount in the end. It was like 4,000 euros that he wouldn't cough up at the end. And he went to pick up his tools from this guy's house, and he's got this enormous house, and he's by himself, miserable, sitting there watching football on his big TV screen. Yeah, and he was saying he thought it was to do with fear of loss of control. Yeah, it was quite straightforward. He wanted to control my cousin. It wasn't even about the money. It was just like he wanted to control him, and there was a fear of like not being in control. And I think that's a big one for all of us. Yeah, we want to be in control, obviously for good reason, but we fear loss of control. And the problem is, if you fear loss of control, you end up treating people like garbage. Yeah, you start treating people badly. That's generally what happens, isn't it? If you want to control people and control a situation, yeah, a lot of that comes through fear of loss of control. Another one, an obvious one, is loss of objects. Yeah, we all have our lovely objects. I've got plenty of lovely objects that I would be incredibly stressed about if I lost. And actually, even the thought of losing them is stressful, you know. I don't know why I think about this. Why not? Why not pepper it with a little colourful story? But quite a long time ago, I bought these incredibly expensive sunglasses. Yeah, I think they were Versace or Dolce & Gabbana, and I was in a jungle rave wearing my sunglasses, as you do in a jungle rave. And I just bought them, and they cost a fortune. And I came out of the club at the end of the night, and they were destroyed because they were in a leather case and they'd been crushed. And that was like a really horrible experience, yeah, like a loss of some treasured object. So I think I'm a little bit clinging to my objects. I've got lots of objects that I like, and it generates a little fear. Anyway, loss of relationships, yeah, it's a big one. You have a bond with somebody, and either they subtly start to lose interest in you, or something starts falling apart, and we've lost a whole kind of future, potentially, a whole kind of dream we had of something. It could be lost, and even there's a fear connected with that loss. Yeah, so that's another big area, I would say, kind of rocks your world, huh? A fear of loss of youth and beauty. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of anyway, that's what happens, isn't it? The decades pass, and every few years that goes by, you look in the mirror and you're like, oh dear. Oh no, I thought this wasn't going to happen to me. I thought it was just something that happened to everyone else, and I'd somehow evade the situation. I mean, it's embarrassing, but I remember when I was 30, I found like one of my first white hairs, yeah, and I was just like, no. So like the tweezers came out, I was like tweezering them out, and there's more. I was like, oh my God. And in the end, you just give up. You're just like, forget it. But the funny thing is, thankfully, unless you're extremely vain and, I don't know, avoidant, hopefully your kind of personality changes in such a way, and your understanding of life changes in such a way that you don't care anymore. You're just like, all right, here it is. It's all manifesting itself, all the white hairs. So be it. It's all good, you know. If you have something, and I was saying in this WhatsApp text that I felt like when I was younger, I felt like if I'm going to have a lot of white hairs, they'll come one day. If they're going to come, they have to be worth something. Yeah, I don't want to have like a load of white hairs and be a complete moron. Yeah, that was like my worst nightmare. So I don't know what's happened, but hopefully it's coming in that direction. Maybe another big one in terms of fear of loss is losing people. Yeah, people dying. So I had a very strange, but I don't know, important evening on during this 3-month course. Yeah, where it was an interesting experience. Weirdly enough, it began with me. I was reflecting on me as a child, like very clearly I could see myself. I thought, oh, what a sweet kid, you know, like really, and that kid's me now. Oh, wow. And then I'll get old potentially. And then I thought about my parents. I just ended up sobbing. I was sobbing for hours, yeah. And I used to kind of shut those sort of things down. I'd be like, this is out of control. But yeah, it was my parents, then it was all my friends, then it was everyone I know. And then it moved off me as well, which I thought was a good sign in the end. It wasn't just me and the people that I love, it was just like everyone, for example, on this retreat, oh wow, they're gonna lose people they love and they're gonna die. And then outwards and outwards to, it had a kind of expansive quality. Animals, yeah? I was really enjoying being with the lizards. Sounds ridiculous, but I got really sad thinking about these little lizards dying, you know? It was like, and I was just sobbing. And that, in a way, felt like almost the antidote to the fear of loss, though. It was more of a direct experience. The fear was gone. It started with fear, and then it turned into a kind of some strange, or maybe not strange, grieving, yeah? And it's funny because there's this conversation that's popped up recently in the past few days to do with detachment. You know, you hear about Buddhism basically, which is true, talking about detachment. You know, we suffer because we cling. Essentially, that's what this fear of loss is about. I'm sure many of you have heard that. Yeah, clinging is the problem. Yeah, attachment. And then we talk about detachment. Yeah. But the way we talk about it sometimes is if we know what we're talking about. We kind of think, oh, detachment must just mean you're removed. Yeah, you're not attached. You're nice. It's kind of like the rugged individual. You know, I'm all right. I'm on my own. I don't need anybody. I don't need anything. I'm safe. Yeah, I'm self-reliant. That's me. And we sort of see that as detachment. Yeah, or I just don't feel too much. Yeah, I think I actively cultivated that side of myself when I was younger, because I think if you're around uncomfortable and bad situations, potentially violence, things like this, you think the answer is to be detached from your feelings, which is what happens to people. We go numb, huh? We end up in a situation and we think, oh, we're cool, yeah, we're detached. We're like, oh, something terrible happens in front of you and you just relax. That's definitely not detachment. And I have to say, I think the kind of experience of feeling more love, you might say, and even grieving, bizarrely felt more like detachment. It was like it felt this. I don't have many experiences like this, but it felt more like, oh, this is just the way it is. It's not like I don't want to know. It's not like I'm cool, I'm numb. It's just like, oh, this is how life is, isn't it? People lose things. We lose each other, and it's okay. That's about as far as you can get with something like that. It's okay. It's going to happen, and that's how it is. And for me, that felt closer to, I would say, the spirit of detachment, because there's love there, there's love, there's feeling, but it's like, that's okay, that's life. It's not this kind of desperate clinging, yeah? Which you can't manufacture. You can't have it as a thought and manufacture it. It has to come from somewhere. So that's another thing, isn't it? We fear losing people. All right, moving on. Maybe a loss of status, yeah? Talking about getting older again, I went to a club with Arya Bandu, who's not here, when I first got to Berlin. I haven't been to a club for years. I was living in this kind of monastery type place, and I thought, oh yeah, let's go to a club. And I just felt like, man, everyone here is about 20. I felt like that old guy that I used to see in the club, like, do you know what I mean? Like, what's he doing here? Do you know what I mean? I was just like, I felt like a definite loss of status. I was like, I wasn't like alpha, kind of young, cool. I was like, oh. this is horrible. So that's, yeah, a loss of status. Perhaps again though, you know, as a positive side with Buddhism, something like Buddhism, for example, even as your kind of status can go down, it's just like you see through it more. So you're just like, so what? Do you know what I mean? It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. Easier said than done sometimes, for sure, but it's not a big deal. So yeah, maybe loss of status. You know, we spend most of our life trying to create a status for ourselves. We're trying to manufacture something or develop something so that people hold us in high regard and look up to us and all of this. Yeah, that's great, it's fine. But when you start losing that, it can be painful. Especially when I talk to friends of mine that are in their 70s and 80s. You know, it's like you become invisible. I was talking to my dad, he's very funny. He's just like, anyway, I won't say what he said, but you become invisible to people, yeah? So you've got to deal with that. And there's a fear of that. There's a definite fear of that. So we try and shore ourselves up and get more and more status, whatever it is, whether our status relies on us being slightly edgy or dangerous or cutting edge or rich or whatever it is. There's some way we want to kind of build ourselves. And when that starts losing, that could be potentially a bit difficult. So we're scared of that, yeah? Yeah, maybe another thing is loss of health. Yeah, that's a big fear. We fear losing our strength, we fear losing our potency, our vitality, and we fear getting sick. Yeah, yeah, it's been a strange period. I have to say, I've had a lot of friends of mine who've been given like terminal diagnoses, old and young, in the past few weeks. Even it's just like, wow, you know, just like one after the other, and. Maybe I'm completely naive, but for some reason, or maybe I'm just not in a very good state of mind at the moment, but for some reason at the moment, I don't mind. I think, oh, okay, you know, I shouldn't jinx it actually, but I just feel a bit like, wow. And also, it's been quite interesting listening to some people, like people that I know that some of them have got a few months to live, yeah? They're mainly all Buddhist, I have to say, but I've been quite amazed by the level of all rightness in them. I found that a bit disturbing. Yeah, I'm looking forward to my big day. I heard someone say that. I was like, okay. Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see if I'm in such a positive mental state at the end. But, you know, I'm curious. It's like, wow, so that's interesting. So, of course, we fear loss of health. Maybe we also fear loss of the familiar. That's a big one, isn't it? We have things how we like them. Everything's set up just right. We have our tea how we like it, our green tea, we have this. We have our regular routines, we have everything in place. It's nice. I want that. I want more of that, actually. And we fear losing that, yeah? We fear having things thrown in the air. There's a tightness comes into the body again, yeah? So the loss of the familiar. It's worth saying, if you're going to practice Buddhism for a long time, you're going to be actively cultivating a loss of the familiar. So just so as a warning, pre-warning, it can be quite uncomfortable. But we'll get to that. Okay, so that's fear of loss. Another thing we fear is that we feel like we're not quite solid. We're not quite, how do you say it? We feel a bit made up. Yeah, we kind of, sometimes you can feel this thing like you desperately want to be a real person, you know. Everyone else seems quite real sometimes. They seem quite solid with their jobs and their character and where they come from. And sometimes you can feel a little bit like patchwork, you know, you're put together. And that's because you are. We all are. And, but we fear that. So we want something solid. We want to feel like, oh, I'm a somebody, yeah? I'm real. This is me. I know who I am. And we fear sort of not being found out, but there's a sort of weird sense of discomfort or unease in us that, because we can end up touching something that's true, the fact that we are actually made up, yeah? I get that. I used to get that a lot, you know? You manufacture this whole personality that you put out to the world, this whole kind of edge, this kind of guy you are, this girl, whoever you are, you come out into the world and you get the sense sometimes, this is This is all a bit put together, yeah? But some people do feel real. I think that's partially why there's because we don't have any gods anymore, we don't have any kind of deities or anything like this, you might say, our loss, I would say. But because we don't have that, we deify other people, yeah? So I remember, it was a really bizarre experience, but I remember it was 2008 or 9 or 7, anyway, let's just say 2008. And I was in London, and I was in Leicester Square in the Underground, and you know what it's like, there was just like thousands of people, yeah, thousands and thousands and thousands, just going everywhere, and I was one of them. And I was like, I'm nobody, we're nobodies, yeah, I feel like an ant. And then I looked up and there was a poster of Rihanna, and I was like, she's a somebody. It's like, like a goddess, like, I need to be there. I need to be a somebody. I need to be a real person. Yeah, it's like this back to front thing. So I was doing loads of music, and long story short, I ended up doing some interviews, which I was appalling at, which made me realize I didn't want to do music. So I was doing loads of music, and I realized, you have to cultivate a personality now. Someone says, so what did you have for breakfast? And he was like, and you've got to tell an exciting story, and you become a nobody, you become a cardboard cutout, which is why, I know loads of people in that business, they start feeling very unreal. So, anyway, a bit of a sideways one, but fear of not quite holding up, yeah? Maybe a clear loss of identity. You can see it on a broader scale at the moment. People are seen to be scared, so you end up with like severe nationalism again. People like, I'm English, I'm whatever. Whatever you are. People got their stake in the ground now and drawing a line like, this is me. Because when things start to lift off the ground, you want to kind of have a sense of being a real person and being like solid, yeah. Which obviously the Buddha said is going to be a major source of your suffering, yeah. The more you do that, the more suffering, the more tight you'll get, the more you get knotted into a little ball of identity, like this is me. And your life just becomes one long exercise in kind of shoring yourself up against what's not you, yeah? So that's what the Buddha's saying. Yeah. Okay, good, great, all the fear, great. Another simple one is fear of discomfort, yeah? You could say fear of suffering, but maybe that's a bit too broad. But fear of discomfort even just small things. Like I've got a pair of these barefoot sandals. They're actually quite good, I like them. But they can be quite painful. I was doing a lot of walking, and I realized I got into this state, it was like, I got into this kind of secondary layer to do with a sensation. Like I had blisters on my feet, they hurt. And there was a kind of weird fear attached to being just uncomfortable. It wasn't even pain, well, it was pain, but it was just uncomfortable. And then it was just like, this is the problem. This little fear and this little story about the pain is the problem. I ditched that and I just had some interesting sensations in my feet. So what? And the next day I had a few like hardened bits on my foot. It was fine. But I think we do that with all sorts of things. We get this little discomfort. This whole story comes on about it. There's an aversion to it. And yeah, it becomes a big issue for us, which is why it's quite good sometimes to sort of test yourself, isn't it? To throw yourself into actively uncomfortable situations, whether that's physically or mentally or emotionally, just to kind of show yourself that you're all right, actually. Yeah. So those three things, yeah. Fear of loss, fear of being kind of insubstantial, yeah. Fear of discomfort. Yeah, all these things, they're in a way they're little way, they're kind of angles on talking about this central thing in Buddhism, right? Which is the Buddha's 3 marks of conditioned existence. It's called, yeah. So he said, things are impermanent. Yeah, everything is impermanent. There's nothing permanent anywhere. There's no fixed point. There's no fixed deity that exists outside of change, yeah? Everything is impermanent. Everything is insubstantial, meaning everything is put together, yeah? There's no essential thing that you will find anywhere. There's no fixed soul, in a way. And the third thing is life is unsatisfactory, isn't it? I'm not even sure. I mean, you hear it all the time that there's a word in Sanskrit, dukkha. Yeah, dukkha. There seems to be different translations of this, or ideas about where it came from. Some say it means something like faulty cartwheel. Yeah, on a. And there's other people saying, no, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't matter. I like this idea. It's just like it works, doesn't it? You're kind of, even if your life is all right, something's just not working. There's a little bit in this like, you've just gone on this bumpy track and the wheel is a bit broken, so you're kind of bouncing around, yeah? So that's dukkha. So these three marks, they're ways of looking at things, yeah? So you often hear, don't you, like Buddhists, they're kind of obsessed with impermanence, yeah, and suffering. How can they be so happy, yeah? Actually, it's not a metaphysical statement that the Buddha's making. Yeah? It's not a metaphysical point of doctrine that. It's more like if you look at the world through these lenses, yeah, through the fact, if you look at the world and you actually pay attention to your experience, and you see that things are impermanent and they're insubstantial and maybe not satisfactory, your life will change and your experience will change and something new comes into your experience, yeah? It's not like you sitting there reflecting on it all day, how terrible life is and how you're going to lose everything. And it's not like a religious position in that sense. It's more like a method, yeah? Which obviously needs to be buffered by developing positive emotion, friendships, all this kind of stuff. But it's more like a method. If you look at the world in that way, the world will change, yeah? You'll get out of your little hard little knot of selfhood and you start experiencing things more fluidly. Yeah? There's a kind of different experience to be had on the basis of looking through these different lenses, yeah? They're even said to be doorways, yeah? So they're not things you have to drill into yourself and become a miserable person, everything's impermanent. It's not like that. It's leading to an experience always. That's the Buddha's whole point. It's about a direct experience. It's not a thought. It's not about having even a framework. It's about leading you to an experience of reality. Yeah. So in a way, these three things are the things that we tend to place our heart upon in life. Yeah. We tend to we're looking for these things, aren't we? We're looking for something that's going to be permanent, that is actually real and is pleasurable, essentially. Yeah. And the Buddha's saying, yeah, you're going in the wrong direction, yeah. Which is why Buddhism is countercultural, yeah. It just is. It goes against almost any culture in a certain sense at its core, yeah. There may be kind of societal overlaps. There's codes of conduct. There's ways we conduct ourselves with each other that can bring a community together, which are crucial. But in terms of what it's actually saying, it's kind of countercultural, yeah, to the things that we kind of want to do. So. In a way, the question then is, where do you place your heart? Yeah, if you can't place your heart there, you have to find a place to place your heart. You can't just leave it in a kind of dead zone, which unfortunately I think is what has happened to a lot of us and is happening across societies. It has a huge effect on people's mental health. Has a very bad effect on people. They just don't know where to put themselves. Yeah? If all this, you kind of know that all of this is not really working, it's not really going to work, it's not going to hold up. But you don't have anything else to go towards, yeah, and that's a horrible, horrible, horrible feeling to have in yourself, yeah. You feel like it just leads to the abyss. It leads to depression. It leads to nihilism. So you need something to place your heart upon, yeah. And well, in a way, Buddhism is very clear. There's kind of really only two places you can place your heart upon or your awareness in. One is your direct experience, like actually. Instead of always reaching out for something and clinging onto something, trying to bring yourself into your actual experience, not your secondary layer of your thinking, blah, 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 what's happening tomorrow, what's going to happen after, this guy's annoying, whatever, yeah? Is your actual physical experience, your actual direct physical experience, what's going on, yeah? Your actual emotional experience, your perceptions. You can place yourself there with intensity, yeah? And on a moment-to-moment basis. And your experience becomes more vivid. Not only becomes more vivid, things start opening for you and our previous state of mind as we are here on a Saturday morning, maybe I shouldn't make this assumption. We've got a certain level of consciousness, yeah? Maybe we're a bit dull, we're a bit tired, maybe we're happy, maybe we're whatever. But the more you direct your energy into your immediate and direct experience, things open, yeah? It's the whole thing that people experience in meditation. It's why people have their mind blown sometimes. They go on a retreat and it's like, wow, I've been living on a narrow bandwidth, yeah? Very narrow bandwidth. And I've got nothing, in a sense, I've got nothing against psychedelic drugs, yeah? I think whatever, they can open doorways. But I had an interesting conversation with someone recently about that whole thing. It's like our own teacher said, psychedelics are a bit like a smash and grab raid on the transcendental, or can be, yeah? And the difference is, if you have a kind of broad basis of awareness, that experience gets absorbed and transmuted into your day-to-day life, yeah? So you can have a big experience that you didn't even think was possible, yeah, an expanded state of consciousness, but it's not just left as a high peak experience like a bungee jump. It's incorporated into your kind of consciousness because you put the work in for it. Yeah, you've got the foundation for that experience to integrate itself into your actual experience. Yeah, so direct experience. Yeah, it's not a religious thing. It's not even. It's just the way it is. Yeah, so that's one place you can play. That's one area or one commitment you can make to yourself, is to actually be alive. Yeah, rather than this whole thing where, unfortunately, I feel like that a lot of the time, you know, where I'm on the usual autopilot thing, yeah? Just numb, a bit numb, autopilot. I don't want that, yeah? We'll all be dead soon. I think it's fairly straightforward. So do you want to spend your time not really having been alive? That's the question, yeah? And unfortunately, I've had friends who've worked in hospices, and that seems to be the question people ask at the end, yeah? They've got like a week left, a few days left, and a lot of people genuinely get upset at the end. You know, they're just like, I can't believe it. There was this whole life, there was this whole experience, there's a whole way of being with people, and I missed it, yeah? Because I was trying to be a good person in the narrow sense, or trying to just fit in or something, yeah? It's very painful. So that's one area that you can place your heart upon, yeah? Is your direct, like a commitment to living more vividly, I would say, yeah? More bravely. Very difficult, but in a way that's what the Buddha himself said. He said this whole path is the most difficult path you can possibly take. It's not just a comfort, it can be a comfort. It's nice to come to a place like this. I think there's nothing wrong with that. You have a communal aspect, you know, very kind, hopefully kind people, love. There's like people listen to you normally here, which is unusual in the world, actually listening, you know, and there's something going on. But there's more to it, yeah? There's more to it. And you know, the other place one can place one's heart off the back of that is your potential. I don't mean potential in a kind of optimizing your life sense of like having bigger muscles and, I don't know, eating green things and living to 400 years old and optimizing. Yeah, I mean your actual potential as a one of these bizarre two-legged biped consciousnesses wandering around here for some reason. You know, the Buddha's basically, his whole claim is this is one level. It's one level. And his whole journey represents that. He saw all these things. He saw loss, impermanence, you know, suffering. And he went forth, as it said, yeah? And, you know, according to him, he was free, yeah? And liberated. And it's very difficult to put these sort of things into word, because when you start talking about enlightenment, you can't help but start boxing it off into neat little concepts, you know, and words by definition are dualistic, so you end up with a kind of narrow pathway of what you think enlightenment is. But it's another place to place your potential, having an actual sense that there's a lot more to you, yeah, like a lot more. And that's why it can be frustrating being a Buddhist, because I would say I know that I have a lot more. There's a lot more potential in me, even if I look at the clues and signs. But I'm a mess. It's like Arloka says, we're a mess in progress. Yeah, but it can be really frustrating because you're just like, wow, there's a lot to deal with here. Yeah, whether it's your own psyche, your own psychology, your whole mental states, you have to trawl through your past. Whether it's your kind of reactivity, all these kind of things that need dealing with. But there is the possibility of becoming something, yeah? And if you don't have that in your life, you're pretty much, yeah, it's not a good life, yeah? Because you just tread water, yeah? And yeah, I think that's a shame, in a way. It's a shame. So, yeah, I think those are the places you can place your heart. Yeah, your direct, immediate experience, and be kind of committed to that. And your own potential, your potential for what we call Buddhahood, yeah? To become free from your own neurosis, your own hatred, negativity, criticism, be free from that, be abundant with love, yeah? And it's not just big words. The whole point of Buddhism is you test it in your own experience. That's what he said, test it like a goldsmith tests gold. It's not just about some lovey-dovey, oh yeah, I'm a Buddhist now and I love everyone. It's not like that. There's graft, yeah, there's work to put in, but you can. Yeah, maybe I'll just finish by saying in a certain sense, the only really important takeaway from all of this, I think, is that actions matter. Yeah, your actions matter. Yeah, we can kind of kid ourselves sometimes that, well, it didn't really matter. It's not so bad what I said. It's not such a problem that I stole this or I did that or I wasn't honest about that. But actions really do matter, and that's basically the Buddha's takeaway point, is that you can shape yourself. Yeah. Again, I'm not talking about optimizing and becoming like even a better version of you, but something else, like a morphing. Yeah. And the way you morph, the way you change yourself, is through a rigorous engagement with your actions and an honesty. Yeah. So that's the whole area of karma. Yeah, it's where what karma literally means action. Yeah, and that's our Buddha's whole point. Yeah, if you act in one way, you will experience suffering. It's just in the post. It's not even up to you. There's no way of avoiding it. Yeah, if you're basically a low life, or not even a low life, on the scale of low life, it's in the post. It's coming. It's not divine retribution. It's not any sort of special God who's going to punish you. It's just your consciousness has developed in a certain way that you become a certain person. You know what it's like. I have it sometimes where if I'm, and I have fed this in the past, if I'm in an aggressive mood, yeah, and I'm walking down the road and some guy who's a bit bigger than me or something walks past me and gives me a funny look, I can be like those little dogs, you know, like, it's something pops up, you know, but it doesn't need to be like that, yeah. So you can craft yourself out of these traits, yeah. So that's basically the only takeaway I would say. Actions matter, yeah, they have consequences. And the same with positive actions. The more love you bring into the world, the more honesty you bring into the world, I would say that's where your strength comes from, yeah? It's a bit like these old school kind of, there's an old school religious aspect to it almost, that you strengthen yourself through your morals, yeah? I'm not talking, we're in Berlin, yeah, I'm not an idiot. I'm not talking about sort of narrowing yourself into some kind of religiosity and some fake piety where you do everything and then you say a few words and then it's all okay. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about if you have a backbone, like a moral backbone, ethical backbone, you will become strong. Yeah? Even if your body gets weak, you become strong, which I think, again, counteracts the aging process, as far as I can tell anyway. You know, if you're morally upright, it won't hit you in the same way. Yeah. Good, so I'm going to leave it there.